boss fights. Love them or hate them, they're a staple of most video game genres. There's something just so satisfying about testing your skills and facing off against a huge, crazy boss. I personally have always loved making boss fights, especially in the style of Megaman bosses. Like here's an example of an early prototype of me when I was like 15. And to be honest, I don't know what's more scary, the boss fight here or the graphics. But I didn't make this video to sit around and reminisce about the past. I made it because I've been working on boss fights on my Metroidvania called Dewdrop Dynasty. Speaking of Dewdrop Dynasty, you can wishlist it now on Steam. Our Steam page looks terrible, trust me, but it's about to look good real soon. So please wishlist it, and I appreciate it. Now, if you've ever played a Metroidvania, you'll remember that boss fights are like the most important thing in the game. Okay, maybe not, but they're super important. And ever since the last devlog, I really wanted to get started with some of these fights. But before we get too caught up in all that, I wanted to share some of the updates I've made recently, because it's been, what, like 4 months since the last devlog? One of the first big improvements I've been working on is the enemies. Enemies are another critical part of the game. They're kind of like mini bosses if you want to think about them that way. So I went back, improved the artwork, and played around with making their mechanics less cheap. I don't know, is that the right word? The crows specifically in Tumbleweed always bother me. Their pathfinding was just too perfect. So I played around with some tweening. Here's 2 triangles moving around, beautiful. And then here's them again, but one of them's a crow. Yeah, this gets really confusing here. Trust me, I was playing around with how to make better crow pathfinding, and I thought this was the right option. It wasn't. I eventually figured out a better system, and now crows are the final boss of the game. You're welcome. I also created some new enemies like this guy called an ambush who chases you around and then he blows up. I thought this would be pretty cool to have like a wall that you need to blow up and then you have to lure him over. So yeah, I like him. There's actually quite a few new enemies I made. I'm not going to show all of them. The last one I'm going to highlight is this boomerang guy. I just think he's funny. He has a shield. He tries to block you and you have to shoot his feet or his head quickly. I don't know. What do you guys think of him? Moving on from enemies, I also worked on improving the interactivity in the UI system. Now there's this down button. You can open up a chest and when you pick up an item, it plays Metroid. Don't worry, I will replace that. I also overhauled the NPC system, so the NPCs walk around, they talk, there's proper word wrapping, it's beautiful. I even made a guy named Digsby to prevent beta testers from going to locations that they shouldn't, so I love him. And it was at this point I decided to start working on the bosses. Now, if any of you have played the Dewdrop Dynasty demo, you'll know at the end of it, there's a boss that you fight named Cactodilla. Now, she was never meant to be in that location in the demo. I just didn't have time to make the final boss of the area, so I put her there instead. Going back, I decided it was better to move her to a more central place of Tumbleweed, which I will not name, and you'll fight her early on. I also just wanted to redo the fight because running left and right a bunch isn't the most compelling boss fight, and I knew that at the time. I just ran out of time for the demo. So I created a unique location for her with unique art. I also gave her a cutscene in the beginning to kind of make it a little more intimidating, and also, and finally, I improved her attacks. Now she actually charges left and right at you, and she'll slide. I think she could use one more attack, but we'll get to that in a later time because we got more bosses to work on. Now, before we even continue, I kind of have to mention a new location that we added to the game, and it's called Gizmo's Gear House. It's a clock tower location with mechanical wizards and machinery and libraries, and has kind of become one of my favorite locations to work on so far in the game. Now, the development for this location could be a whole video in itself, as there's all sorts of hazards we created and enemies and new mechanics, but the main thing I want to mention was the mini boss of this location, the Wizmos. What first started out as enemies that would kind of teleport and fly around and shoot projectiles at you kind of became something even bigger. I love the idea so much of having these guys fly around that I felt like they were almost more of a threat in a group. So I decided to make a trio of them. Each one would have its own kind of strengths and attributes, and you would have to fight them all together at once. I'm not gonna lie, this is such a simple fight compared to what we'll have later on the game, but already I love this boss fight. I play it all the time, and it's just super satisfying, especially when you defeat them. Now, we're working on other bosses as well, like these cake dragons, but the last boss fight I wanted to show off in this video is the one and only Bonsai Beetle. Now, if you watch my last devlog, you'll know that I already started working on him, and I kind of had a rough draft of him. The problem was, it was terrible. So like any decent human being, I went back and I made Bonsai Beetle actually look intimidating. I updated his artwork, I improved his animations, and I made him look like, I don't know, not like a SpongeBob character anymore. So out of all his attacks, the only one I kept from the original draft is him throwing TNT. I really like that and it feels suspenseful. I took out the sniper shooting effect, it just was too cheap, and I replaced it with a sniper shooting effect. I know, it doesn't make any sense. It looks way better now, and his aiming is a little less accurate, so you feel like you have a chance to actually dodge it. I also make him teleport around the map full on Meta Knight style, just to get him away from the player, because before he would like anime run left and right, and I don't know, it just didn't feel very intimidating. And finally, I made him do a big old punch at you if you're too close, just to create some distance. Boss fights are really all about areas and making sure that the player can't stand by the boss the whole time, because that's not fair. And that's pretty much it. I still want to add in an attack or two more, probably him doing a downward kick up in the air. He needs to do something in the air just to create some more space. But man, this boss fight is a lot of fun to play. I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface with this devlog because so much has happened over the past 4 months and I just kind of skimmed over things, but I hope this at least gave you a sense of how progress has been coming along and where the bosses are. Of course, as the closer we get to the release of the game, the less and less I want to show, just so I don't spoil it for all you guys, but I'll continue to do updates like these, and let me know if there's a certain subject matter you would like to see, whether it's the music, whether it's enemies, the combat, mechanics, whatever it is, let me know in the comments down below. I'm always curious. Now, if you want to learn how to start making games and program yourself, then check out today's sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant has thousands of lessons from foundational and advanced math to programming, AI, neural networks, and more, with new lessons being added each month. And their interactive lessons have been proven to be 6 times more effective than passive learning, like just watching random lecture videos. Being able to see what you're learning is really important for engaging with concepts, and Brilliant storytelling makes abstract ideas actually relatable. One course I really like is Computer Science Fundamentals. It basically is Programmers 101. It helps with decision making, writing programs, and algorithms. It's fantastic and I highly recommend it. To try everything Brilliant has to offer, there is a 30-day free trial. All you have to do is visit brilliant.org/Goodgis or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription, and I just want to say thank you to Brilliant for supporting the channel and my game dev journey. Also, make sure to check out my website, goodgis.fun. It's got Q&A stuff, it's got my latest videos, interviews, and I'll be putting on some secret stuff pretty soon here, so keep your eyes peeled. Goodgis.fun. Anywho, that's it for this video. There's a lot of exciting stuff for Dewdrop, and get excited because the release is coming sooner than we think. Oh boy. All right, have a good one.